Good evening, America, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Solomon, reporting to you, as always, from Washington, D.C. and the WiredToFishCoffee.com studios. You know this Wired to Fish Coffee, the official coffee of Just the News, the favorite coffee of the Solomon family, and many of my colleagues. You can go right now to Wired2Fishcoffee.com, get a fantastic 10% discount on their great tasting coffees, as well as their great mugs, the Just the News mug, one of them, the tumbler. Go check it out. How you get the 10% off? Just put Just News in the promo code at checkout. All right, the Russiagate news has not been stopping as of late. Last night we told you we thought the next step would be the Justice Department would name a strike force, and a few hours after we got off air, the Justice Department did just that. It is now an official criminal investigation. They're going to assemble an all-star team of FBI agents and prosecutors to decide whether people from the Obama era, maybe all the way to Jack Smith, should be investigated for crimes. Amanda, it's a big moment. This is a big change now. Now, doesn't mean people are going to get indicted, that we're going to get the accountability everybody wants, but this is the sort of thing they do when they want to go after the mob or when they go after a drug cartel.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. And something that struck me yesterday, John, I was in that hearing when DNI Tulsi Gabbard came into the briefing room, briefing, not hearing, and she came in and she walked through methodically so many of the steps in what could be a 10-year-long conspiracy. And what struck me, John, was the number of liberal journalists who had just looks of recalcitrance on their faces, including one particular journalist in the back who I'm not going to name her, but she actually shouted 2 or 3 times, "That's not true." Which, as a journalist, you're supposed to look at the facts, and before even looking at what Tulsi Gabbard put out there, she immediately deemed that. And so what strikes me is the willingness to be smacked in the face with contrary opinions and still double down on protection of people like former President Barack Obama. But you know what? If the information is out there and the people can learn it for themselves, you know, I don't know if the indictments or charges are going to come. I don't know if anyone will end up behind bars, but I know that what these people allegedly did, should be known to the American people, and it looks like we're heading there.
Yeah, and the news media was a major co-conspirator in a political conspiracy. Whether it rises to criminal, we'll see. But we're lucky to start our show with somebody who really was the person who pulled the string that unraveled this entire scam. We spent a couple of good long segments with him. We're going to start him off here. Devin Nunes, take a listen. All right, folks, we're very lucky to kick off the show with the man who authored that 2020 bombshell report that now is the talk of the town. And now he's in a position to fix some of the things that the intelligence community broke, including our trust. He's the chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, CEO of the Trump Media and Technology Group, and of course, the former chair of the House Intelligence Committee, a great friend of the show, Congressman Devin Nunes. Sort of good to have you here today.
Great to be with you guys in person in Washington.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
All right, it's worse than I ever thought. I think that may be the headline. Jim Jordan said that the other day. When I read the report that you authored with Derek and Cash and others, it's devastating to realize that they put out an intelligence product with not an ounce of evidence to back up its conclusions.
Well, and for you to say that, John, of all people, you were one of the few reporters who were actually trying to get the story right back in 2017.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's exactly right. There's a reason why they hid this report from the American public for so long. And it forced me to say things like, well, wouldn't it be common sense that Putin would not care about Trump, because nobody thought Trump was going to win.
That's right.
At the time, back in 2016.
Nope.
So, well, when I say no one, I don't mean for the great people that voted for President Trump, but I mean for the swamp creatures, all the world leaders around the world, including Putin. And that's what the evidence showed. I mean, our team went through there, painstakingly for nearly 2 years to go through, and we said, give us every single bit of evidence that you have. And if you go and read the report, there's no evidence about Donald Trump colluding with Russians. There's some interesting stuff on other people, and Putin figured that Hillary Clinton was going to win, which is what everybody knew. So now the question is, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So Comey's decision to use the Steele dossier, even in the face of folks who were saying, this is shaky at best, shouldn't there have been more checkpoints along the way? Or maybe I'm misreading the situation. Maybe Comey just has the unilateral power to do that, but it seems like there would have been people in his sphere who would have discouraged it.
Well, Comey's a complicated figure, because you remember that he took it upon himself to absolve Hillary Clinton in July, which of course then Hillary Clinton was blaming Comey for all the problems that she was having. So then I don't know if Comey just felt like he needed to vindicate himself, take the law into his own hands, which he then did because he was one of, we don't know if it was just him or others, but for sure he was involved in making sure that that dossier ended up being presented inside of that report.
Right.
I think the bigger issue now is just some dates that are critically important. So roughly around Thanksgiving, after the election, the House Intelligence Committee Republicans got briefed by the FBI and other intelligence agencies that nothing had happened.
Right.
By the way, it happens to match the intelligence that was in the report that
That's right.
that was finally just put out by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, that Chairman Crawford from the House Intelligence Committee pushed out, which was the report that we had done. But it showed that that was the intelligence at the time. We spent 2 years combing through it. Well, also around Thanksgiving, and this date's important, of 2016, that's what we were told by the FBI, by the IC. And then we now know, because of what was Director Gabbard was able to find, which I think was a critically important piece of information that should have been given to the House Intelligence
Absolutely.
Committee
Yeah.
back when we had subpoenaed it, is that the Presidential Daily Brief on or about December 8th, so Thanksgiving to December 8th, you've got a couple weeks in there,
Yep.
that PDB said exactly what we were told and what we found in our report.
Yep. And what the Intelligence Committee agreed all the way back to September, right? They had the same theme from September forward, right?
That's exactly right. And so then December 9th, something changes, and I think that's where the investigation needs to be picked up, and the people who politicized intelligence need to be held accountable. Which, by the way, I don't want to play I told you so, but we put out a press release right after that December 9th meeting because they were supposed to come to brief us, and we said, what the hell is going on here?
changed?
This is going to lead to politicization of intelligence for political purposes, and that's what happened.
If there's anyone in Washington that deserved the chance to do I told you so, it's you. Because you got it right. And I watched Adam Schiff and all of those dishonest political spin makers try to denigrate work that was actually done with the best of it was done factually. That's what you did.
Yeah.
You asked the question at the top, where do we go from here? So there's two pieces, I think. One is the reforms to make sure this never happens again, but there's now a strike force. It's a tool that Justice Department normally only uses for mobsters and drug kingpins. Now they're going to use it to look at the Obama administration as a criminal enterprise. How important is it, and do you think there could be criminal charges based on what you learned? The evidence you've seen, was there criminality here?
Look, it's really simple. There's lots of criminals here, and it was a grand conspiracy. I mean, remember, we made, I don't know, a dozen criminal referrals when I was chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. So now the question is that, and I know the viewers, hate to hear this, but the question is we have a statute of limitations in this country.
Yep.
And so, which means, in simple terms, is, a lot of these laws expire after 5 years. We're dealing with something that happened 8 years ago. And so, or 9 years ago in the case of what happened in 2016. So the question will be there's clearly lots of evidence there, but is there, I think the legal term is called a predicate, that maybe could be out there. I don't know what was said over the course of the last 5 years, but if there is a possibility to get a predicate that would then allow that to be opened back up for conspiracy investigation, that to me is what seems the most logical. But look, my job as chairman of the Intelligence Board for the President, we're not in charge of Department of Justice. We're not going to get involved in law enforcement. But we will, gather the information, and we will send it to Congress. We'll send it to, as we get the information, we'll send it to Congress. We'll send it to DOJ, and that's, I think, ultimately, the truth will come out, and hopefully, people are held accountable.
If the case is built as a grand conspiracy case and you can connect all the dots, starting with Hillary Clinton's email case, it's almost like a political arms race because Hillary, she has her email problems and they go after Trump. And then as we've talked about the laptop problems with Hunter, they go after Trump. Biden's document problem, they go after Trump. If you can connect all of those dots, doesn't that make it exceedingly easier to nullify the statute?
Well, and if you got, not to correct you because there's so many scams that occurred and hoaxes, but you forgot a bit.
Tons in between.
But you forgot an important one. After Mueller Okay, and when Mueller looked at the Russia stuff,
Right.
and that completely flamed out because Mueller found what we found, which there was no Russians, there was nothing to do with Russia. Then they created another hoax, and that was the Ukraine impeachment hoax
Oh, I know
Right,
that
yeah.
one
that
all
John,
too
yeah,
that
well.
John knows really, really well.
That was painful.
So all of these things run together, including how they suppressed information from Congress then, Congress now. I mean, look, I even want to know who's been suppressing the information just since President Trump's been elected.
That's right.
Right. Yeah.
There's people within the IC agencies that were blocking,
Yep.
this report from coming out. God knows what else. Clearly, there were people that knew about this information. It's just so I think as you start to glean through this, it'll be interesting to see when people are interviewed, the criminal, the people who I think are suspected of criminal activity, are interviewed. What are they going to say? And I think that'll be, all the evidence is out there now. There's plenty of evidence. There has been for a long time. I just hope that, like everybody, I know everybody listening at home's like, we heard Solomon and Hannity and Devin Nunes and Sarah Carter talking about this forever. When are we going to see people get arrested? And I can just say, look, nobody wants people to pay a price for this more than me. Say more. I think you and I and others, John, are on the
President
same page.
Trump.
But President Trump. But I think
He was the victim of it. Yeah.
But I think the real victims, are not just the president, not just the American people, not just our intelligence agencies. The real victims are ones that people don't even know, forgot their names. A lot of people remember Carter Page,
Yeah.
Papadopoulos.
Papadopoulos, yeah.
There's names like Michael Caputo,
Mike Flynn.
General Flynn, General Flynn's son. All these people lost everything.
Yeah, they did.
Roger
Their
Stone.
reputation. Roger
Yeah.
Stone. Yeah.
They lost their reputation. They lost their houses. They lost everything. And so, there's the old saying, how do you get your reputation back? That's a challenge. But also, these people lost their livelihoods.
They did.
So,
Really great point.
hopefully, a price is paid for these crimes that were committed.
All right, you just heard Devin Nunes say it. Russiagate was conducted by a bunch of criminals. It was a grand conspiracy, and we can't forget the victims. Now, we're going to take a quick break. We have more of our exclusive interview with Devin Nunes when we get back. We're going to put a new document on the table to potentially be classified. It's probably something you haven't thought about in a long time, but it will make a lot of sense. But first, let's get a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more with Devin Nunes right after these messages. Hey, everybody. Have you heard that in April, China significantly reduced its American Treasury holdings to the tune of $8.2 billion? And it could signal what's coming. China is now third place among foreign holders for the first time since 2008. But this is bigger than just China. Foreign central banks are systematically moving away from the U.S. dollar while stockpiling gold at unprecedented levels. They understand what most Americans don't. A collision between Trump and Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is inevitable. Powell's term runs through 2026, giving him extraordinary power to resist Trump's economic agenda. With $36 trillion in national debt and interest payments consuming more than our entire defense budget, the mathematics have become unsolvable through traditional means. That's exactly why our friends at American Alternative Assets created the urgent new guide, Fed versus Trump, the coming battle for America's financial future. This guide reveals the Fed's most powerful weapon against any president and shows how everyday Americans can protect their retirement savings before this showdown destroys unprepared portfolios. The smart money isn't waiting to see who wins. Call 855-GOLD-340 or visit my website, johnlikesgold.com. That's 855-465-3340 or go to johnlikesgold.com. Get positioned before the battle begins.
Welcome back, everybody. Just a peek behind the curtain. We did not plan on this interview being 2 segments long, but sometimes when you get in an important conversation, it's just too good to pass up. So we kept it rolling. So let's get right back into our interview with the chair of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, Devin Nunes.
You mentioned Ukraine, and if the Steele dossier turns out to have been fake information, if the ICA turns out to be fake information, one has to wonder whether the whistleblower complaint that gave birth to the entire Ukraine scandal might not be as accurate as it was portrayed at the time. It was peddled there by a guy named Adam Schiff, so there is a mark right there. Would it be valuable at this point in time to also declassify the machinations around Ukraine, because it probably follows the same pattern of dirty tricks?
Probably the same people.
Probably same people. Right?
Probably the same people involved.
Yeah.
And that's pretty obvious because,
Yeah.
and we were mentioning this earlier, but you know, when the Mueller hoax investigation ended,
Yep.
then kind of there was a short break, but it was only a matter of weeks.
It was.
And they had already cooked this up,
Yeah.
and it was a scam.
Yeah, it was
a
already
fraud.
rolling. Yeah.
You know, there was nothing wrong. It was just like when, talking about General Flynn talking to the Russian ambassador. Oh my God, that's evidence of collusion. Like, no, the Russian, ambassador is here in Washington to talk to lawmakers, especially an incoming national security advisor. So the same that was in General Flynn's case. So the same is true when President Trump, amazing how these characters are still around, speaks to Zelensky,
Yep.
knowing that there's all kinds of corruption going on in Ukraine,
Right.
has been for a long time, and for the president at the time to say, hey, you need to clean up your act, essentially is what he said, and for them to then leak, oh my God, he was threatening Biden and this and that. It's like, no, like that's what the president should be doing if there is corruption, which clearly there was corruption that everybody knew about, including the fake news. So somebody conjured this up, a few people, all related to the other people, when they knew that the Mueller hoax, the Russia hoax, had flamed out, they had to start a new hoax. That's what happened.
Can a whistleblower complaint to the Intelligence Inspector General be declassified? I don't know the rules, but it seems to me that would be a real, in all the machinations around it, I think that might be gold for the American people.
Yeah, and
Can be, right? Yeah.
especially if they're fake whistleblowers.
That's right.
Which is what we found in Congress when we investigated
That's right.
this, that this guy was not a credible whistleblower, couldn't even say his name, they acted like it's all
Right.
secret.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a nothing burger for me because we never talked to the whistleblower.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, it didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's, look, that's one of many things that has to be looked at. And so you start to look at all these events that were all done by the same people for the same reason, which was to take out a duly elected president in President Trump. And then there's something else that is important
Yes.
that I think you already know about. The raid on Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
So this continues. Same people doing the same nonsense continue this hoax and raid Mar-a-Lago, which I believe we need to see what were they actually looking for when they went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
I think that's an important key, and that the statute of limitations has not run out on.
And maybe, just maybe, it was Russia collusion evidence.
My guess is that it was.
That's my
But
guess, too.
That's a guess.
Yeah, no,
we
it's
don't
the same
know.
thing. Yep.
But all related, all the same people. They raid Mar-a-Lago, unprecedented on the home of a former president
Yep.
at the time. They raid Mar-a-Lago, same people, same hoaxes, same everything, but with the power of the Justice Department,
Yeah.
with a fake special counsel, this guy Jack Smith.
Yep.
All
It would tie it all together.
Might of the
wouldn't it?
so
government.
there's all of that has to be, that needs to be looked at, and hopefully justice will prevail.
Real quickly, the DC universe, not the comic books, but this DC universe with Jim Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Lisa Page, Rod Rosenstein, Andrew Weissman, all of these people who were somehow involved. I know that you have learned a lot about the personalities of these people as you have followed and reported and investigated this. If you're prosecuting this like it's a mob case and you're going after people who are maybe tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, so you can get up to tier 1, whose personality seems the most vulnerable?
Well, good question that I'm not going to answer that question.
Is that good a question? Huh?
Yeah.
I'll take initials.
So look, I don't want to get into, we know all the players. I'm not going to be obviously running this investigation, but I would say that, there were probably a lot of people trying to impress then President Obama, right? And then when Biden was in, a lot of the Obama people were then in the Biden White House. Look, and it's all going to be the same cast of characters. So I think you're exactly right. And look, Durham's investigation needs to be looked at. He had some nuggets there. Clearly, bringing these cases in Washington D.C. here in Washington D.C. was a disaster. I mean, how an FBI agent could alter something in front of the court, get prosecuted, get convicted, and then the same judge, this Boasberg judge, who's here in Washington, basically gives him a slap on the wrist. I mean, so you got there's much bigger problems here. So it's not just about finding out the truth. It's not just about holding people to justice. It's also uncovered this rotting in the court.
Yeah.
And so that's another challenge that if you bring a case and you bring it in the D.C. court, that's got to be something that the Justice Department looks at, because for Republicans, doing anything in Washington, D.C., which it's sad to say this, but you're not going to be treated fairly.
Yeah. It's like swimming through Jell-O.
You're not going to be treated fairly in Washington, D.C. You're not going to be treated fairly in New York. You're not going to be treated most likely in California, Chicago. This is a problem in our country. It's a whole other topic, but it's a larger problem. But having an FBI and justice system that works, that's something that President Trump can actually make work. But the courts are a whole other problem.
Just real quickly, intelligence officers take an oath of office. There are people that, based on the evidence you produced, violated that oath, gave us a fake intelligence project, which affects our national security. Will there be, or should there be, terminations of people who are still in the government who did things that you've now exposed?
Well, it's funny you mention that. I mean, I'm just amazed. I mean, we met today. I chair the President's Intelligence Board, and we met with we have a very good group of people that are on that board. And I'm just continue to be fascinated by the people who are still carrying a security clearance.
It's amazing.
Who are still in these agencies, and I'm just shaking my head. Like, every time I turn around, like, wait, wasn't that person's in that position? That was a Russia hoax person. Mm-hmm. Like, they've burrowed in all over, and it's like, because there were so many that participated in this hoax, from the reporters to different people that hold security clearances. And all of those people need to get their security clearances pulled, and they should not be working anywhere near law enforcement or intelligence, for that matter. So it's one of the things that that our board is tasked with, is not only rooting out weaponization, but making sure that the intelligence agencies, and I think Director Tulsi Gabbard is on. Is definitely on top of that. I think we're looking forward to being helpful where we can with her.
In a moment when America was deluged with lies, you gave us truth. Then you left Congress and you gave us truth again, and that gave us free speech back. And that I say that with a lot of gratitude, because doing what we could do today wasn't possible. First, if you didn't unravel us, and then if you didn't create a platform that we could speak out when we were all being censored and trying to tell the truth. We're really grateful for what you did, Devin.
Well, thank you. And Truth Social, not only Truth Social, but also Truth Plus. And now you know that Real America's Voice is now global. There's probably a lot of people watching this right now all around the world. And that's one thing I think the president, myself, are very proud of, that even though they canceled all of us, we were able to stand up a company, build a company, open up the internet back up, not only the social media, but now to streaming, because Real America's Voice, other news agencies can't get on to all the major platforms. And now the fact of the matter is, over the next couple of years, it doesn't matter, because we're not going to need one, because we have our own. And we're just happy that Real America's Voice has been a real part of this as we built out the Truth Plus streaming system. But you can watch it anytime, anywhere, except, guess where we're not up?
Where?
Russia.
Of course you're not.
YouTube is. Isn't that funny? Like, we're accused of being the Russian people, but the Russians aren't allowing our platform up in Russia.
They got something to fear with truth.
Yeah. Let me tell you, when I was out, that was when I was doing the bus tour with Real America's Voice in 2021 and into 2022. And it felt like a wasteland at that time when it came to getting true information. And when Truth Social came around, I remember every time we were at a bus stop, people were always saying, "What's your truth handle?" It wasn't "What's your Twitter handle?" It was "What's your truth handle?" Because people they flocked to it because they felt like they could finally speak.
I walk by the tote board every day and I see the traffic that comes into the Just News from Truth, and I'm always grateful, because it wouldn't have been there, and we wouldn't have had this free speech moment if it weren't for what you
Well, for Just the News, I know that's been the case a long time, and we're thankful for everything Just the News did to help Truth Social. But I want to make sure that I want you to be at the top of the board of Truth Streaming, and I want most people to
on
watch,
my phone now.
watch
I watch it.
you guys on Truth Streaming. So if you go to Truth Plus, you can get that app. You can join the Patriot package. You can join it now. It's only $10 a month.
much
which
programming.
it supports
So good.
people like John and Amanda, Steve Bannon,
huge.
everything that Rob Sig's doing at Real America's Voice, and so we're hopeful that people will take advantage of what we built.
Yeah, they're going to. I'm certain of it. Devin, thank you so much for the time today. Thanks for the great work you did. We got the truth this week that you helped expose many years ago. We're grateful for it.
Well, thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. A lot ahead after these messages.
Tell me the truth. How many different beauty potions do you have sitting on your bathroom counter right now? If it's more than just Vibrant Super C Serum, listen up. The ingredients in this one bottle can replace your day creams, your eye creams, your night creams, your neck creams, your wrinkle creams, and your dark spot reducers. It's made in the USA with the highest quality ingredients, including vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, vitamin B5, and vitamin E. Super C Serum delivers noticeable results. Simplify your skincare routine, get a healthier complexion, and minimize wrinkles and age spots with Vibrance. And if you don't find it better than your current skincare routine, you'll get a full refund. So go to Vibrance.com/justnews to save up to 37% off and free shipping. That is Vibrance, Vibrance, Vibrance.com/justnews.
Welcome back, everyone. It was a great opportunity yesterday. Amanda and I sat down with the counselor, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. He is Joe Lavarna, and he brought out some interesting new statistics that aren't being talked about in the media that really point to an economic boom, a Trump boom, as Amanda wrote on Just the News earlier this week. It's a great interview. You're going to learn a little economics here, but it's going to make some sense why people are optimistic about the future. Take a look.
So a lot of successes. There were so many doomsdayers 3 or 4 months ago about the tariffs, but I actually just heard a few hours ago, and I'm hoping that you can give us a little bit of a scoop, that an EU trade deal may be in the offing. Any details?
No, no details that I can provide, but I will say that President Trump highlighted the fact that he was going to make deals that were going to be clearly in the U.S. best interest for businesses and households. You see the deal with Japan is stupendous. And Secretary Bessent had highlighted that once we get some deals moving, if things are moving along nicely, there would be more countries rushing to come to the table. And that's exactly what's happened. And President Trump's vision is to be commended. And my boss, Secretary Bessent, certainly has done a monumental part in help getting these deals through in a way that really is quite advantageous to the U.S. economy.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And I think when President Trump took office, even his best supporters had some concern that maybe there would be a Bidenomics hangover, that the inflation and stagflation that had arisen on Joe Biden's watch would carry over. But there are real strong signs of a boom ahead for us, a Trump boom, as Amanda called it in her story this morning. CapEx spending, and specifically new manufacturing of industrial equipment, really rising like we haven't seen in decades. What's behind that, and what does it portend for the economy?
Right. So Amanda, we talked about the trade, but also you should mention the tariffs. I just want to answer that question. The tariffs are raising significant amounts of money, and they're not generating any of the inflation that any of the consensus of economists had expected. And of course, financial markets, equity markets are at new all-time highs, and the outlook is a boom. Related to that, if we look at equipment spending, production of equipment, what we see in the first 2 quarters of the year is a near 17% annualized increase, which, if you take out the pandemic, is the biggest, John, increase since late 20. Sorry, I keep saying I can't believe it's over 20 years. Since late 1997. So in other words, you got nearly 17% equipment production, fastest since the back half of 1997. So you're correct. It's several decades, effectively. That's incredible, and that's the direct result of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which has retroactive expensing to Inauguration Day. So companies started to invest in CapEx, in other words, products, machinery, telecommunications, software, computers, etc. All the things that companies need to produce the goods and services that people want. That started right effectively when President Trump was going to put forward this bill. And now that it's in place, we're going to reap more of the benefits from it. And the capital investment leads the hiring. So we should see that boom that your colleague just was talking about in the second half of the year. And memories of the hangover that preceded this administration will hopefully fade dramatically.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Sir, I have been speaking to some farmers, which are not typically in my wheelhouse of news bringers, but they did have news to bring, and that was that these tariffs have been a boon for their industry, specifically the tomato industry of all industries. But hearkening back to earlier in the conversation with all of the negativity surrounding these tariffs, it's helping Americans much more than the people who said that it would hurt them is hurting them.
Well, the thing is, the tariff, again, it's designed if you're not going to play fair and you're going to tariff us, then you're going to get a minimal tariff to protect U.S. industries to be able to allow them to compete on a level playing field. Free trade is great, but it's got to be fair. We have to play by the same set of rules. When you have low corporate tax rates and you've got cheap and abundant energy, and where the administration is rolling back onerous business regulation that's holding the economy back, and you marry that with a tariff, you have every incentive in the world to want to come to the U.S. to produce here. And what that will do is it will better balance trade. It will create jobs, add to industries in the U.S. that the president wants to grow, whether it's AI, digital assets, cryptocurrencies, all these new innovations that will then broaden and deepen even the U.S. capital markets, as Secretary Bessent has highlighted. Everything works together in unison. And that's why the tariff is so powerful. It can't be looked at in isolation, which is what many economists had done. They need to look at the totality of the policy, and already it's producing dividends. And that was even before, as I said, the legislation on the One Big Beautiful Bill was even passed.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I've been talking to a lot of small business owners because I haven't seen an optimism on Main Street USA and Small Business USA in a long time like we have right now. They said the tax certainty, the regulatory certainty, which they didn't have at all during the Biden years, was such an important part. Getting rid of the estate tax or easing the estate tax. And then now knowing that there are these brand new markets that we've been closed to for years gives them a sudden rush desire to expand, hire, build new equipment. Talk about that perfect storm, how it's all come together so quickly and what it might mean for small businesses, which employ about 40 million Americans.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, small businesses consider anybody that's got a firm, from 1 to 49 workers, so less than 50 people. And what's interesting is, John, when you look at President Trump's first term and you look at small business sentiment, President Trump over the full 4 years registered the highest 4-year average of any president, Republican and Democrat, going back to the 80s when the National Federation of Independent Businesses, where this survey derives, started their report. So that's just reflective of the fact that the president, who literally was a builder for predominantly his entire adult life, knows how to create things, of value, has American interests at heart. We saw in the first administration, real median income rise over $7,000 prior to when the pandemic struck. That was more than double what had been in the previous 16 years. President Trump made those tax cuts permanent. You've got further incentives, the reintroduction of the 100% expensing for CapEx, also a 100% expensing for factories. Again, combined with the tariff, it's going to really encourage people to operate, bring their capital to the U.S. You see it in the trade deals. You see it in the other various agreements that the president has been able to broker with the help of Secretary Bessent and, of course, Secretary Lutnick. And all this foreign capital is coming in. That is just a boon to U.S. industry. It's a vote of confidence in the outlook. And when President Trump talks about things being a golden era, he wants this to be multi-generational. This isn't going to last just for a year or two. It's going to set the U.S. on an upward glide path that will lift the tide of everyone. The rising tide lifts all boats. And what we saw is a real benefit to middle class and lower income households in the first Trump term. That way, I hope, will be the hallmark of the second Trump term as well.
Amazing.
Certainly looks like we are heading down that way. Counselor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Joe Livornia, thanks so much for being here. Great to get your insight.
All right, who would have known that industrial orders for equipment and CapEx were going to actually affect your bottom wallet at the dinner table? But that's what you just learned from Joe Livornia. What a great interview. All right, after the break, we've gotten a lot of great response from our Just the News Health Update, and particularly the discussion we had a couple of weeks ago about processed food and why it's a ticking time bomb in our diet and in our bodies. We're going to bring that segment back by popular demand. Native Path Dr. Chad Walding, and right after the break. Welcome back, folks. One of my favorite moments of the week, our Just the News Weekly Health Update, brought to you by our friends at Native Path. Joining us right now, the co-founder and chief culture officer at Native Path. He's one of my biggest gurus. He's really helped me get healthier, Dr. Chad Walding. Doctor, good to have you back on the show. All right. We spent a lot of time the last 3 weeks going through and understanding the dangers of processed food. And I want to pivot today to, all right, we now know the dangers. We now know the sugars, the pesticides, the lack of protein. When you start eating more healthy, when you start pushing the processed food out, natural food back in, then you supplement it with things like Native Path. Tell us some of the things you're going to see in improvements and changes once you start doing this.
Yeah, once we start moving away from the processed and refined food diet that we've all been fed, right? That many of us have been eating for a long time, and we start moving back on the path to whole real food, in other words, the way our great-great-grandparents would eat, we're going to start to notice huge changes in our overall health. There's really three key areas that I always point to, right? Blood sugar regulation. This is one of the biggest things. Like insulin resistance is one of the key areas of what's making us so sick, right? So when you balance your blood sugar through whole real food rather than food that's got a lot of sugar in it, you are going to radically reduce a lot of the metabolic issues that you feel. So weight loss, right? Obesity, things like that. Blood sugar issues tend to go away a lot easier. Blood pressure issues, high triglycerides, cholesterol issues, all the things around the heart tend to get a lot easier when you go to a whole real food diet. And also another one that most people don't think about is your gut, right? When we move to a whole real food diet and move away from the processed and refined foods, our gut health starts to improve. You know, Socrates said, our real true health begins in the gut. This is where we break down food. It's where we absorb the vitamins and the minerals that we eat from the food. It's also when we eliminate toxins, right? So when we have bad gut health, that's going to set us up for a lot of the autoimmune issues that people might have. A lot of the stuff when people go to the doctor and they're like, I feel bad, I don't know what's going on. The doctor's like, I don't know what's going on either. Let's just give you some pills. You know, sometimes that can be helpful, but sometimes it's just poor gut health. And when you have good gut health and digestion gets better, your mood gets better. You know, a lot of the inflammatory issues that a lot of people have dealt with start to get better. So, you know, improving the quality of your life, extending the quality of your life, having more energy, having more productivity, being happier, being healthier, less dependency on pain meds, all of these things are a byproduct of moving towards a more whole real food diet, as we say, getting on the path.
One of the ones that I noticed, and I have to tell you, it was the one I least expected when I started on this journey, and that is I sleep better. I'm not agitated. I wake up in the morning, I'm way more refreshed than I used to be. Is that another part of the body that just gets affected when you get on this path?
Absolutely. And a lot of that comes down to sugar. And when people are dependent on sugar and they have big ups and downs with their blood sugar, right? You wake up in the morning, let's say you have a cereal, some orange juice and a toast and a Pop-Tart or something like that. That big up and down cycle leads to big swings in your energy, right? And a lot of times people will have that throughout the day. And then, you know, if they're eating carbs a lot throughout the day, and I'm really referring to refined carbohydrates, you go to bed, you're ready to sleep, but your blood sugar just takes this big spike again. Right. And what that does is it gets your energy up and you're wired and tired. Right. When you regulate your blood sugar a lot more specifically with good quality protein or surrounded by whole real food and good fats, you don't have those big highs and big lows. It's more stable throughout the day. It's less volatile. And that allows you, when you go to bed, to fall asleep easy, to fall asleep fast, and to stay asleep through the rest of the night because your blood sugar is more regulated, which comes from whole real food and good quality protein sources. So we hear that a lot, and that's a big thing. And when you sleep better everything about your health gets better. That's a whole other world that gets underlooked because of the way we're kind of eating, but also our relationship to light in the modern world, right? So fixing sleep fixes a whole lot of things.
Yeah, it sure does, and it's been one of the many benefits. All right, one of the things I love about Native Path is it's so easy to do. I usually throw it in my coffee, or sometimes I'll have a strawberry smoothie in the morning. I love that, and I just throw it in. No flavor, there's no additives. It's easiest thing in the world to do to get a really big boost in your health overall. What goes on after that happens? When I take it, I drink it down, I go in, I know I'm feeling better in a couple of days, but under all of that, there's some amazing things going on in your body when that absorption of the peptide formula starts occurring, right?
That's right. We're referring to collagen here, right? Collagen is the most abundant protein in the body. And like you said, this is a tasteless, odorless powder that you can put in your coffee. You can put it in your tea. You can just make it a part of your morning routine. And what you're going to be doing is restoring your collagen levels, which have been depleted because of the way we've all been eating and living in this modern world. We have to keep in mind what our biology actually wants in terms of diet. And our ancestors would get plenty of collagen because they would eat nose to tail. Again, it's the most abundant protein in the body. It's what makes up our hair, our skin, our ligaments, even underneath our tendons, our gut lining, even our heart is dependent on collagen, but we're not getting near enough. So many of us are depleted in that. So when you start consuming collagen on a consistent basis, people will notice, they report to us changes. And one of the first things they notice is what's happening on the outside. Like my nails are growing faster. They're stronger. They're not as brittle. They're not breaking as much. And when that change happens, people notice less wrinkles, the hair starts to grow back, and then the bigger stuff, the joints, like how well we moved. You mentioned earlier in a former talk we had about your elbow getting better, knee pain getting better,
that was real.
Back pain getting better. Yeah, so all of that changes because collagen, when we consume it on a consistent basis and we break it down, it goes into our body. The collagen doesn't just go to random areas of the body. It specifically goes to areas that are damaged and helps rebuild them. It's an amazing little molecule. It has this intelligence on its own. So taking it consistently, making it a part of your morning routine is one of the easiest things you can do for your health.
That's amazing. You mentioned before insulin resistance, and there's the new fad of GLP-1 injections. Everyone's getting them to get the magic weight loss, but a lot of people can avoid that injection routine and the expense of it if you just get on a healthier path and you start getting collagen. You really won't need those injections, right? Because your body's going to heal itself from the inside.
That's right. Yeah, and it's a good thing to bring up. Is why were we having obesity, weight issues in the first place? Because of refined processed foods and sugar, right? So moving back to the basics, and I mentioned earlier, protein is one of the best things we can do. All the benefits that people are hoping to get from the GLP products, they could also get that with the chicken. They could also get that with a steak and some ground meat and some eggs without the side effects. And I'm not saying don't take the medication, but support it with this, right? You use whole real food, good quality protein, and things like collagen to support you on your health journey. In some cases, those medications can be helpful given the context of where people are at, but really support that with good, healthy things that you put into your body, and you'll see even better results.
It's amazing. It's really, I'm a firsthand witness to this, and I'm pretty suspicious. I'm an investigative reporter. I don't think it's going to work. It really works, and it's made a huge difference. I'm happier and healthier because of the path I've been on, and I want to thank you for helping me get there, Dr. Chad. Your education, the great products you have at Native Path are just amazing, folks. I want you to join me if you're moved by what we talked about today. Here's what you do: go to getnativepath.com/justnews right now. There's a special bundle deal only available because you love RAV and you love Just the News. It's a fraction of the retail price. All you got to do is go to that website, getnativepath.com/justnews. Over 4 million jars of this has been sold, thousands of 5-star reviews. I'm one of them. 365 money day back guarantee. This is your moment to take control of aging before the symptoms get out of control. Go to getnativepath.com/justnews right now. Join me. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Amanda will be back in a second. But first, a few messages.
Welcome back, everybody. I am not so thrilled to start on this sad news. We are losing 80s legends left and right. First it was Ozzy Osbourne, and now Hulk Hogan at the age of 71. So young, cardiac arrest.
I'll forever remember his performance in the Milwaukee Republican National Convention. Never did I ever think I'd go to a political
Incredible.
convention and see a guy rip out of his shirt like
Yep.
that. He was a character. He was a good man behind the scenes. He
Yeah.
fought one of the epic libel cases of all time, and he made wrestling what it is today in the modern day.
Yeah.
He's going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, I was
No
sitting
doubt
with some
about it.
friends up in the rafters at the RNC.
Yeah.
And I was getting a video of him.
Yep.
And I remember my eyesight, this is how far away I was. My eyesight wasn't good enough to see what was happening live, so I was taking a video and watching, and I remember doing this and being like, did he just rip his shirt off? Just
It was
absolutely incredible. Now, on
Classic
that note, a little bit of
stagecraft.
levity.
Yes.
Because apparently Tom Homan was on C-SPAN earlier today, and
Yes.
he was asked by the reporter his thoughts on
the passing of
on
Hulk.
the passing of Hulk Hogan, and apparently he revealed that he had a 200-pound Italian Mastiff named Hulk Homan.
Wow,
so he
that's a
obviously
big
has
dog.
very endearing feelings
Hulk
for.
Homan. I like
Yes.
the twist of phrase there.
All right, I have a few things that I shared on my Twitter timeline that I want to tell you about. So, John, I don't know if
Okay.
you have seen this yet, but the White House has added the court decision about the Associated Press from
Mm-hmm.
the Court of Appeals.
Yep.
They printed out a copy of that court decision, and President Trump signed it, and they have added it to the press briefing room.
Be forewarned. Don't cross the president. He might kick you out. Yeah. That's
So
funny.
a little
That's a
trophy
little-
hanging there on the wall. Another thing that hits near
little
and dear,
psyops going on there.
yeah, a little near and dear to me growing up, being someone who loved to ride four-wheelers and speedboats and sea-doos and pontoons and all that kind of stuff. The Trump administration has deregulated gas cans. So gas. If you've bought a jerry can lately, you will see that it's got a twist, it's got a push, it's got a pull, and so many ridiculous regulations for actually opening the darn thing. So now Jeremiah cans can go back to being just regular old jerry cans.
Wow. How about that?
I love it.
M-triple-G, making gas cans great again. How about
I love it. Okay, and then another one, boy oh boy, President Trump today with Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. President Trump gave him a really hearty slap on the back.
I bet he did.
And this was when they were talking about raising the interest or not lowering the interest rates. And President Trump said, well, I think you should lower them, and gave him a very, very hard slap on the back. But also they were talking about the expense of this project.
Yep. It went up already.
And a reporter asked President Trump, said, you know, you're a real estate developer. What would you do if a project manager allowed it to balloon this far over budget? And he said, broadly speaking, I would fire him. And Jerome Powell was standing right there. It was,
That was pretty good.
he always has one loaded in the cannon.
We rely on the Fed to reduce inflation, and this building project just keeps getting inflated. It's at $3.1 billion now.
Yeah.
Way more than it clearly cost to build that building. In fact, it's probably less than some stadiums, right? Arenas
Absolutely.
or something. I mean, it's just crazy. More signs of trouble for the Democratic Party. All right, they got two socialists running for mayors in the race this year. That ought to be something to embrace. They don't have a message. They've got a couple of key Democrats that have mortgage fraud, but they can't raise money right now. Over the weekend, we had this story. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but the Republican National Committee outraised the Democratic National Committee 2-1, 16 to 8 million.
Yep.
When you're down 2-1 in fundraising, you've already lost the first race of
As the
20
opposition party.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
normally the opposition parties gets that energy back. They got no energy whatsoever. And speaking of the Republican National Committee, a little bit of news from an old friend of ours, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Whatley, going to run for North Carolina Senate.
I
How about
love
that?
it.
And Laura Trump is not going to run.
I know,
So,
I
yeah.
know. But Michael Whatley, man, what a great job he did over at the RNC. If that is
yeah.
any indication of the
Ground
success
game.
that he would have as North Carolina senator, I mean, he is a force
Ground
to be
game, that's how
reckoned
you
with,
win.
for
And
sure.
he revolutionized the Republican ground game to bring in early voting, and that's the way you win in these states.
Yeah. Okay. Emmanuel Macron
Yeah.
files a defamation lawsuit against Candace Owens
That
after
was his wife, actually, wasn't
his
it?
wife, yeah.
Yeah.
In conjunction with his wife. So Candace Owens, as many of you know, has been asserting on her, I guess, podcast that Emmanuel Macron's wife is transgender, that she
Yep.
was born a man. And Candace Owens doubled down today, saying, "You were born a man, and you will die a man." And she said something to the effect of, "Just send us some blood tests or pictures of you growing up." And the 120 or so page order that was sent back to her actually did have a lot of pictures in it. So I don't know if she just didn't read that, or maybe her attorneys didn't. But
Well-
this is going to get messy.
I think she had 3 children in her earlier marriage, right?
Yeah. So.
All right, well, that's one I'm not going to get any further into. I think they'll let that one stay and rest with Candace Owens.
Well, I think it's going to be fun to discuss whatever comes out in the discovery process if it gets to that point.
Yeah, well, we'll see. How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, everybody. Oh, and speaking of the funding thing,
Yeah.
this is what happens because you have so many of those Democrat donors here in Washington, D.C., and so many of them are hanging up their hat and headed out of town, and
They
they're
are.
unemployed, so they're not donating.
That's exactly right. Good point.
Big time win for
Good
President
point.
Trump. All right, everybody. That's all the time we have for tonight. Have a great evening. We'll